Hello, everyone. It's Shane Kanto, your Wasteland Reviewer, and welcome to Lost in the Wasteland, my weekly interview show where I learn a little bit more about somebody else's perspective on movies. And joining me is a fellow film critic, Steven Silver. Thank you so much for coming on.
Hey, thanks for having me. I appreciate it.
Absolutely. And appreciate you hopping on here. But before we get into all my questions, if you would like to shamelessly plug anything where people can find your work.
Sure. I have a Substack, which is it's called the SS Ben Hecht, but the URL is stevensilver .substack.com. That's Steven with a PH. I write 5 days a week on movies. I do every week. I do an essay on Monday. I do a movie anniversary essay on Tuesday. I review a new movie, or I review a new feature film on Wednesday. I review a new documentary on Thursday, and then I do a notes column on Friday. Sometimes the days of the week are switched around for various reasons. If a movie anniversary falls on a specific day, I'll do it on that day, or if the embargo lifts on a new movie, I'll do it on the day that it does. All of the original movie reviews are free and unpaywalled. The other things are you get a preview, but they are paywalled. Like the notes column, the first item is free, and the rest below that are paywalled. So again, stevensilver.substack.com. I also do a podcast called Film Scribes, along with my colleagues in the New York, or I'm sorry, the Philadelphia Film Critics Circle. We do that. About every 3 weeks we do an episode. Our most recent one was right before the Oscars, so I assume we'll be doing one maybe right after the Oscars. I contribute to the Philadelphia Inquirer. I do occasional features for them on the arts entertainment section. I write for the Jewish Exponent. I write for the Jewish Telegraphic Agency, and then I do reviews every week for Splice Today. So I do. I'm entirely a writer. That's my whole career. Not everything is film. I do some stuff on politics, policy, technology, various other topics, but film is my first love. It's the thing I enjoy doing the most, and so it's kind of been my life's work writing about film. So that's I'm very very lucky that I'm able to do that, and I love doing it, and I hope to continue doing it for as long as I can.
Awesome. Thank you so much,
Mhm.
Stephen. I'll make sure to put a bunch of links into
Oh,
the
sure. Thank
description
you.
on the video so everybody can check out your work for sure.
Mhm.
But let's get started. And with everybody's favorite question, but what's your favorite film?
My favorite film, I kind of go back and forth among a few.
Mhm.
The answer I give most of all is All the President's Men,
Okay.
from 1976. Alan J. Pakula, the director, about Watergate. For some silly reason, I was a Watergate buff when I was like a young teenager, and I read all the books, and then I saw the movie, and I just like thought, even if it wasn't about something I'm interested in, this is just fascinating stuff, and you know, it's a thriller, and it's politics, and everyone watching it knows exactly how it's going to end, but it's still great, and I love that ending with them sitting at the typewriters, and so that's one of those movies where if it comes on TV, that's I'm going to watch it till the end, no matter what.
And I know, like you mentioned, you write about politics as well and stuff like that. And also just being about writers and journalists.
Mhm. Oh,
And
sure.
I'm sure that really builds that connection with the film. And it's a great film as well. If
Mm,
honestly any kind of film that comes out about journalists kind of is like put up
mm,
against that film,
right.
um, it's an absolute classic for sure.
Mm.
Now, thinking about what's your earliest memory of going to the movies?
I don't remember what the first movie I ever saw was.
Mhm.
I feel like I saw E.T. at a very young age. I know it came out in
Mm.
1982 when I was 4. I don't think I saw it in the first run. I know I have a picture of myself dressed as E.T. for Halloween. Probably, I don't know what year it would have been after the movie came out, obviously, and probably not the very year that it came out. But so I know that was definitely one of the first ones. I don't remember. I remember my dad taking me to one of the Superman movies with
Okay.
Christopher Reeve. I don't remember. It wouldn't have been. I mean, I was a baby when the first one came out. I was probably
Mm.
3 or maybe even 4. But yeah, that's as close as I can remember. And my kids, I have 2 sons. They're 13 and 15. And I don't. What was their first movie in the theater? It was something really. For my older one, it was something like really not special. I think it was like Plane Search and Rescue, which was like the
Oh,
off-brand animated movie. I don't know if it was it Pixar or it wasn't Pixar. It was something
no,
something Disney animated, but it wasn't the main genre. Would have loved for that happens sometimes with kids. You want to plan
mm.
something special for the first movie, and it just doesn't really end up working out that way. But
Well, and especially with like something like E.T. back when, movies would be in theaters for like a very long time and then be coming back and stuff like that. So now it's like you're lucky if it lasts a couple weeks and then pops onto a streaming service. But
Right.
no, off-brand cars was a great thing, so let's make planes
Right,
and stuff
exactly.
like that for sure. But no, E.T. obviously is an all-time classic and certainly
Mm.
was a film that was a very formative one for a lot of young moviegoers for sure. Now, Steven, do you have a particular favorite genre of movies?
I don't really have a specific genre when it comes to just comedy, drama, action, horror, anything like that. I know my favorite subgenre, I would say, is a sprawling mystery set in LA that goes into various corners of
Nice.
LA and has a plot that's way too complicated to describe in one word and has a the protagonist is someone who's kind of addled in some way, and
Mhm.
I'm referring to Big Lebowski, Inherent Vice, The
Mhm.
Long Goodbye, um, Under the Silver Lake. Although I don't love that movie that much, but that's just kind of I think or the Nice Guys is one as well. I mean,
Yeah.
that's my favorite kind of movie. That night movies, I guess, as well. So that's I would say that if that's the description of the movie, that's something I'm probably gonna like.
Well, and it's such an interesting vibe too, capturing like LA and Hollywood and stuff like that. I'm a huge Lebowski fan for
Mm.
sure.
Yeah.
And like I love LA Confidential,
Oh yeah.
any kind of film like that, Nice Guys. Certainly a film that a lot of people were drawn to in the past. Oh God, that's almost 10 years old now.
Yeah.
Um, still waiting for a sequel. Do it,
Yeah.
Warner Brothers.
Yeah.
So, but no, that's definitely a very interesting and very specific vibe, and a lot of
Right.
films really are able to capture that for sure.
Mhm.
Now, thinking about behind the camera, who are some of your favorite filmmakers?
Well, I would say Steven Spielberg's probably the first name that comes to mind, just
Okay.
in terms of, how much that guy's work has, loomed large in my life.
Mhm.
Whether it's the early stuff like I said, E.T. or Jaws
Yeah.
or you know, Close Encounters, but also, I mean, Saving Private Ryan, Schindler's List, movies like that are
Mhm.
just amazing and hold up when you watch them again. I don't usually get. I've often find myself, in the presence of movie stars, whether it's a I'll go to a junket like once a year, but also just, when people come to town, Bradley Cooper always comes to town and does a premiere when he has a movie.
Yeah.
Like, I don't usually get starstruck, but when I was at the Toronto Film Festival a couple years ago and the Fablemans premiered, and I was in the same room with Steven Spielberg, that was
Nice.
just special. You just actually, seeing that guy in person. I love Tarantino as well. I know Pulp Fiction was just an extremely important movie to me in terms of
Mhm.
just like I was in high school when it came out, and it just was a movie that kind of showed me what movies could be and kind of got the ball rolling on appreciating movies in a way that it hadn't before that. So he's definitely up there. Scorsese, of course. And so yeah, though that's kind of that's the top of the list. In terms of, I mean, Paul Thomas Anderson's done a lot of things I love. Who else can I list? I love Wes Anderson too. So
Very nice. Obviously, Spielberg, all-time great filmmaker, and has such a interesting variety of films in terms of what he was able to make work. And you know, you have a filmmaker who could release Jurassic Park and Schindler's List in the same year. Like
oh,
that's
yeah.
pretty impressive.
Just the
And
logistics of, getting both of those done and, editing one while he's
wild.
filming the other. He's in
Mhm.
he's in Poland filming Schindler's List. I mean, that's, yeah.
Absolutely wild. But no, and obviously like Tarantino and Scorsese, some of our all-time greats as well. Now, thinking about in front of the camera, who are your favorite actors or actresses?
I don't really have one in particular. I know that if you look at someone like Gene Hackman who just passed away, you just look at
Mhm.
like when someone dies, you take stock of everything they did, from beginning to end, and he just did so many amazing things in different genres over a really long period of
Mhm.
time. If you could ask, five people what are your favorite Gene Hackman movies, and you get a bunch of different answers. Depending on how old they are, depending on
Yeah.
you know, Hoosiers is one of the best sports movies. But then you look back at like he was in so much great new Hollywood stuff, like The Conversation, and
Yeah.
then Royal Tenenbaums, which was like the third to last movie he was ever in 2001.
Yeah.
And that was like just one of the best performances I've ever seen. So he's definitely up there. It's there's so many actors and so many actresses. I mean, Kate Winslet, I've always had a great admiration for just the way. I mean, she's kind of kept her career going and done amazing work over a really long period of time as well. And loved everything Tom Cruise. Well, not everything Tom Cruise has done, but a lot of what Tom Cruise has done. Tom Hanks as well. And I mean, they're just like it's great when you. Sometimes also great when an actor can surprise you and they'll give a performance that you didn't know they had in them. So
Yeah, speaking of Gene Hackman, and like you mentioned Wes Anderson too, and Royal Tenenbaums, that's one of my favorite
oh, yeah,
performances, like just period. And he's absolutely fantastic. And I'm a big Western fan, and
uh,
something like Unforgiven's one of my favorite films. And the performance he gives in that is such a very different kind of performance, but it's so impressive as well. And Kate Winslet's just throw her into anything and
yeah.
she's fantastic and really elevates things, um uh, her digging into some of her HBO work at this point.
Oh,
um and yeah, Mayor of Easton definitely hit a specific chord for people like us in this specific area, so that was definitely interesting.
yeah, she gave an interview I think it was a couple months ago. She went on 60 Minutes and was talking about she's talking about the movie she did last year, and
Mm,
she said all this stuff about, how hard it was to get the Delco accent right. And
yep.
every media outlet in Philadelphia wrote about her saying that. I'm like, she said that 3 years ago when the show came out, Don't you remember
Yeah.
that? Like, it was a pretty big deal that,
Mhm.
she loved going to Wawa and she had difficulty with the Delco accent. Don't you remember? I mean, it was kind of extraordinary. Actually, it was speaking of that show and Delco, I live in Delco, and the show that the Mira Vista creator is doing with Mark Ruffalo, they
Mhm.
filmed like around the corner from my house.
Oh, that's
Like
awesome.
they did I guess the character's house is that house, and the guy whose house it was got a really good deal. They paid him some amount of money to use his house. They put him in a hotel. He got some free landscaping work out of it, and
There you
he got to
go.
like hang out and act like he was the producer, and everyone in the neighborhood just kind of watched and tried to get a glimpse of the movie stars. I think I saw the back of Mark Ruffalo's head at one point, but
That's pretty
I lived
cool.
in New York City in my 20s, and I would you live in New York, you just stumble into movie sets all the time. You turn the corner and they're filming Sex and the City or they're filming Law and Order, but not much of that in the Delco suburbs, except for that one week when this Hollywood production was right around the corner.
Well, and speaking of Spielberg, my mom sent me they were setting up in Tuckahoe in Jersey,
Oh,
his new sci-fi film that he's doing.
oh yeah,
He's doing some filming in South Jersey. I'm like, oh, very tempted.
yeah,
Very tempted to go check that out.
yeah.
But Steven, what's a film that you feel like you could watch just literally every day?
I don't know. I'd say I love Fargo. I could watch
Okay.
Fargo again. It was actually I'm from Minnesota originally, and it was actually filmed. The Coen brothers are from my hometown, St. Louis
Oh,
Park, and where they filmed I think they filmed all of A Serious Man there, and they filmed most of some of Fargo there as well. So they're kind of local heroes where I'm from. But
mhm.
Fargo is just like I think that came out my senior year of high school, and that kind of gave the world a look at Minnesota. Not maybe not a positive view of Minnesota. It's just this the version where everyone has silly accents, but also there's an undercurrent of corruption and murder everywhere. So but yeah, I mean I've seen I think the movies I've seen the most times are I think Ferris Bueller,
Mhm.
um, stuff like It's the Wonderful Life and Wizard of Oz. I mean, those are ones that are just on TV all the time when you're a kid. Casablanca, I love too. I could watch that over and
Yeah.
over too. And
I'm a big Coen Brothers fan, so that makes me very happy, and that's also really awesome.
yeah,
Being from the same hometown, I know it made me really it got me really excited, like when you brought up the Fablemans earlier, because like Steven Spielberg lived in my hometown of Haddon Township, New Jersey,
yeah.
for a little bit, which is wild. Such a small world for sure.
Well, I remember there
Now
was a story that when Fablemans came out, they wanted to do a ceremony at the movie theater that he grew up going to, which I think was featured in the movie. But that movie theater is now a Planet Fitness.
it sure is,
So they just went ahead and
which
had the ceremony in the Planet Fitness. I don't know if it was in the parking lot or if it was,
is so sad to me
yeah,
because the Haddon Theater, that the Westmont Theater, was closed and dilapidated for most of my childhood.
mm,
And there were so many, like they tried to revitalize it and turn it into like a club where they could have concerts and stuff like that. And all this nonsense. And then it finally got turned into a Planet Fitness and made me so
yeah.
upset. And my dad, for 17 years, lived right around the corner down the street from it. You could see it from his house.
Mm.
So, such a small world. And they should have, Westmont Theater deserved better instead of
Mm.
being turned into a Planet Fitness.
Right.
Um,
Well, one thing I've learned is that, if they announce a project, well, any real estate project in general in the Philadelphia area, if they announce it's happening, it doesn't mean it is. It doesn't mean it's going to happen in the time they say it's going to happen. No, there
yeah.
was they announced that they're bringing back the Riverview Theater, which I don't know if any work has started yet. I think
Mhm.
they quoted the developer last week in the Inquirer saying, the project is still on track, but it was also the main story that he was quoted in was about how he owes millions in taxes. So we'll see. Let's hope it happens. But I don't know if it will. But
Well, they're still working on the same highway project on 295 that started happening when I was still in like elementary school.
all
It's been over 20 years. They've been
right.
working on the same project. So, oh, crazy stuff.
Yeah.
But, Steven, what's a film that you connect with because it relates to another interest of yours?
I think the answer for this one is Moneyball because it's a movie
Okay.
about, I love baseball and the Moneyball book I remember loving when it came out, and the movie was kind of in the works for a long time. I think they set it
Mm.
up at one point and it fell apart, and then they set it up another time. I think it was always going to be Brad Pitt, but I think Soderbergh was going to direct it originally, and then
Oh,
when
that would have been
they set it
interesting.
up, it was So that was just kind of it's the first sports movie ever in which a team executive is the hero.
Yeah.
There have been others since then, but they
Mm.
made the football one with Kevin Costner too. But this was
Yeah.
the first movie of that kind. It was kind of like at a time when, like, I had a blog back in the early 2000s, and
Mm.
like there were movie blogs, but also there were blogs about baseball, and like a lot
Yeah.
of the baseball bloggers were really into the whole statistical analysis type of stuff that really informed Moneyball, and that sort of that team from the movie. When that came along, everybody was like, "Oh, someone finally put this into practice," and
Yeah.
they turned it into a book and they turned it into a movie. And then the movie's kind of my kids look at it as just one of those classic baseball movies, just kind of like any of the other ones, except it's they lose at the end, and it's about the executive being a hero. Now there's certain things I've started to question about the narrative of that movie, especially the
Mm.
fact that, like, it's basically management saying, I want to save my boss's money and look like a genius when it works anyway. And like I feel like the business world took some cues from that in not such a good way. So that was sort of, and also, I mean, Billy
Fair.
Bean who's the hero that he gave away all his secrets in a New York Times article, and then a best-selling book, and then a movie. So all the other teams just stole all of his ideas, and that's why they never won anything. So that's kind of, the I've been fascinated kind of by the arc of how that movie has gone. Where people still love it, even though it's kind of
Yeah.
in some ways been sort of refuted over time.
It's interesting. I'm a big baseball fan too, and I also teach statistics and analytics.
Oh,
So it's very interesting looking at that side of the game and that challenge between like traditionalists and those who are super into like the sabermetrics and stuff like that.
yeah.
Um are you a Phillies fan or are you
I mean,
still like
I grew up in Minnesota, so I'm a Twins fan originally. I
okay.
do. I mean, I cheer for the Phillies too. I mean, my kids grew up here, so they're Phillies
Mhm.
fans. I go to Phillies games, and but I think I kind of pay attention to both, and I kind of you know, I like to go when they play each other. But it's kind of I like that it's kind of been funny. The Philadelphia Film Festival, not the last year, but the 2 years before that, the World Series one went right up against the festival.
Yeah.
And so, like, people would be celebrating the streets, or they'd be ducking out of the movies to check the score and stuff like that.
Mhm.
After this didn't happen for like 12 years, and then all of a sudden, they're in the World Series, they're making a playoff run.
Yeah.
Um, I thought that was
I I obviously I grew up in South Jersey in the heart
uh,
of Philly country, except somehow a 10-year-old Shane turned out to be a Diamondbacks fan.
really
Which I still am, but I do pay attention obviously and follow the Phillies and go to the Phillies a lot. I'm hoping to go that weekend in May when the Diamondbacks come to town.
okay.
So but no, I'm ready for some baseball. About a week from when we're recording start first games of the season. So exciting times for baseball fans.
Right.
Now, who's a movie character that you feel like you connect with on a personal level?
I think my answer for this is, or I say I connected at the time that I first saw the movie was Albert Brooks's character in Broadcast News. Uh,
Okay.
when I saw that movie, I was probably in college or maybe a little bit out of it, where it was, the journalist who's cares a lot about the integrity of journalism, and he's, resents the good-looking anchor guy, and
Mhm.
he wants to get the girl and doesn't get the girl who falls for the anchor guy. And that was kind of at that time in my life, I kind of related to that guy, and he gets his big opportunity and he sweats through it. I just actually
I
watched I just watched Brooks's movie Lost in America, which he directed, which it's the 40th anniversary, I think, this week. And so I wrote about it. I wrote an anniversary piece for that, and so I'm kind of in an Albert Brooks kick right now.
Yeah. I'm a big fan of broadcast news, and I remember watching that for the first time and feeling so much like empathetic fear and shame for him when he
Yeah,
just starts sweating through his whole entire outfit. But no, I've been slowly checking off his directorial efforts off my
yeah.
watch list, and he's made some amazingly funny films. And I just rewatched Lost in America as well. And that whole entire sequence where he's trying to convince, the casino owner that like
Henry Marshall, yeah.
we're good people, we're
Yeah.
not like other people. Like, just give us some money. And oh my God, that movie for sure.
And he's like, well, our job is the casino, and if we give everyone's money back, we don't make money. And he's having to explain. That's a really fascinating movie about. I don't know if it entirely hangs together, just like as a movie or as a comedy, but I just love how it's set at that particular time, and it has people who I guess you would say they sold out, or at least you would say
Yeah.
the term that they would do. They kind of came from the counterculture, and they decided to go into be yuppies instead, and they try to get a do-over, and it just goes disastrously. And the film
And they just
concludes, no, they shouldn't have done that. It doesn't. It isn't like there's a movie from the '60s called "I Love You, Alice B. Toklas" with Peter Sellers, where he's like he's a lawyer who becomes chucks it all and becomes a hippie, and that also doesn't quite work out. So I think it's just I don't know if the film is saying you shouldn't be a hippie at all, or you just should have done it from the beginning instead. But like, I
Mhm.
thought that was fascinating that it came to that conclusion, in 1985.
And just the ending where it's just like, yeah, they just picked up and got their jobs back and are making money again. I'm like, good for them.
Yeah,
Good for them. Just heading back. It's like, you know what? We'll just go back and then make all their money again. So
right.
good for them.
Yeah.
Now, Steve, what's a film that you love that you feel like would surprise people?
I have a really good answer for this one. I would say Dirty Dancing.
Nice.
This is a movie that came out when I was a kid. I think the first several times I saw it, I thought it was a silly, girly movie that my sister liked, and I'm like, why, I want to watch something else. This is the one she wants to watch, and it's so, it's silly and it's about dancing. And I don't care about dancing. But then like I think I watched it again in a college film class, and it's just there's so much going on in that movie with like class, with like
Yeah.
like I don't think the word Jewish is said out loud a single time, but it's completely obvious, their family is Jewish, and
Mhm.
there's like a caste system at this Catskills resorts where
Yeah.
rich boys are the rich Jewish boys are the waiters, and they're all terrible, and but then like the Gentile people are the dancers, and the Gentile working class people are the dancers, and the father doesn't trust Patrick Swayze basically because he's not Jewish, because he's not rich. But then and it's I think I've also gotten an appreciation for that type of music in that movie, like the
Yeah.
that great 1950s and 60s music, which is just some of the best. That and
Mhm.
American Graffiti, which had probably some of the same songs, but it's just like hearing that music over and over again for a whole movie, and then you get the song at the end, which is just the most 1980s ass song possible. I mean, I can't imagine any other song going there, but it's just like, yeah, that's a movie I've really grown to love, and it's become one of my
Yeah.
favorites.
Well, and I remember watching it because like I had same similar kind of expectations, like, oh, I'm not gonna watch Dirty Dancing when I was younger. And
Yeah.
then watching it as an adult, and you're just like, this has like abortion in it
Oh
and
yeah.
has issues. And it's so interesting because it's a completely different context for me now after, like reading Mel Brooks's autobiography
Yeah.
and watching like Marvelous Mrs. Maisel and like that whole entire cat skills, vacation,
Mm.
experience, and stuff like that, putting it in a different context. But the climax of that movie is just iconic at this point, and nobody puts baby in the corner.
Yeah, exactly. So
So,
the arguments Jewish people had about Marvelous Mrs. Maisel the whole time it was on, it was just
mhm,
like, you know, can she play that role if she's not Jewish? Is it,
mhm.
should she get back with the husband? Should she not? I mean, people got into just bitter arguments about that show. I actually I got to interview Kevin Pollak once, and he was one of the
Oh,
dads in it.
nice.
And then I think I covered it. I didn't interview her, but I covered a talk by Caroline Aaron, who played the mom, the I think it was the guy's mom who she played, and she's like, they asked her, how do you feel about playing, you know, some of these Jewish roles are played by non-Jewish
Mhm,
actors. It's like, come on, it's acting. You gotta let us do it. And she's talking, and
mhm,
she went into how she's from Richmond, Virginia. She's from the South,
mhm.
but she's been playing New York Jews for her entire career. She's played Woody Allen's sister in two different movies,
There you
and she's like,
go.
"Oh, you need to let me play other roles other than what I am." And same with Tony Shalhoub, who plays one of the dads in that,
Mhm.
who's Lebanese. I mean,
Yep.
should he be limited to only playing Lebanese characters? Because if he was, he wouldn't be able to have played. He's played a
You
lot of
know,
Jews, played a lot of Italians.
yeah,
Let the man cook.
yeah. As a Italian American from New Jersey, I have seen Tony Shalhoub play Italian people, and
Yeah.
like it was a big night.
Oh, I love Big
Does
Night.
a great job. Does a great job.
Oh,
So
yeah.
completely bought in. But my last question for you, Stephen, is what do you
Yeah.
love most about movies?
Well, it's kind of the last line of Almost Famous question. Everything. But I would say I love being able to be surprised. I love
Mhm,
just being able to go. Maybe you go to a screening on a Tuesday night of a movie you know nothing about it and it ends up being amazing. Or you watch like I get the screeners at the end of the year. You watch. I like to talk about going through the screener pile. You have a list of
yeah.
movie. Whether you're voting in a critics group or or it's the Oscars. You want to see everything before you vote. You want to see everything by the end of such and such time, and you might see something at the bottom of the screener pile that just blows you away.
Mhm,
And like this is a movie that is I barely know anything about this. I think I'm always making lists of movies I want to see.
mhm.
Maybe some critic I like recommended this 6 months ago, and I finally got around to watching it. I'm just like, whoa, who's this filmmaker? What's this film? How'd this happen? Just being surprised by that is just like, it's a great thing.
Oh, I love that experience of going to
Yeah,
like a screening or getting a screening. Like I'm like, I have no idea what this movie's about. And I'd rather have it that way and then
yeah,
going in and being completely surprised by it. And that's a great thing. It's like I'd rather be surprised than, seeing the same thing over and over and over again. But
right. Of
well, Stephen, I appreciate you taking the time and
course,
answering
yeah.
my questions. But I always like to wrap up my show by having my guests ask me a question. So what would you
Okay,
like
sure.
to ask the Wasteland reviewer?
Um, of all those movies behind you, I'm
Yes.
not gonna ask you your favorite. I'm gonna ask you like, what's the craziest story about how you procured that movie?
Oh, that's an interesting
Yeah.
question. I It's so interesting because some of them, like I've collected these over a long period of time. And I think one of my favorite stories to tell is how I originally started getting some of mine at the very beginning, because this is just going to date things at this point. Is that I'll say this to my students because I work at a college. I'm like, we used to have uh mail in catalogs
Uh,
where you could join a movie club, like a DVD club, and get DVDs through the mail. And I distinctly remember I joined a DVD club back in like 2000. It was like late 2002 or early 2003. And, it's that deal where it's like you could get your first four for like a penny, but then they cost like
like the
30
Columbia
bucks a
House thing,
month.
yeah.
Yeah. So, had my little card and writing in the numbers for the movies I wanted. And I remember the first 2 months that they sent were Gosford Park and Signs.
Hmm.
And I was 12, I think, at the point where like I got that Signs movie on that DVD, which I still own, that specific DVD. And I remember sitting down and watching that and being absolutely terrified.
Hmm.
And it still hits because it still terrifies me, no matter how many times I watched that movie. But like, I should not have watched that
Huh.
I was a kid. But like, I always found that an interesting story, and I've honestly acquired so many of these from the Princeton Record Exchange
Huh.
because I went to and I work at Rider University up in Lawrenceville, New Jersey, which is right next to Princeton. And I have spent many an hour of digging through used DVD bins at the Princeton Record Exchange, just fishing out so many of these and trying to get good deals and stuff like that. I don't have too many crazy stories, but I feel like those are both experiences that I like to share because it's like, especially the catalog one, because like, unless you were doing this at the very beginning of when DVDs came out, you probably have no idea that those things existed.
Right.
Because I even did those for books too. I was a big fan of those little mail-in things when I was a early teenager for sure. It looks like so, but yeah. So I
I
appreciate your
remember the
question.
disc one was that was the Columbia House thing, and
Yeah.
I had a friend in high school who like he was running this thing where he signed up for it and they had some referral program where you got like extra CDs if you referred other
Mhm.
people. And he referred like everybody he knew, and then he would sell the extra CDs he got and made all this money. And I don't remember all the details of his scheme, but he really cleaned up from that, and I guess found
There you
a
go.
way to arbitrage the Columbia House Record Club at least more
Hey,
than the Columbia House did.
what's crazy is like records coming back around. Like I almost joined like a monthly record club and stuff like that, but I'm like, I have two crates of records sitting over here, and I'm like,
Right.
I need to listen to them more before I justify buying more of them. But no, it's a those are fun experiences that like, Gen Z, Gen Alpha are definitely need to have or
Right.
be like, what do you mean? What's mail? Um,
Right.
and
Right.
having that kind of experience. But well, Stephen, thank you so much for
Well,
taking the
thank you for
time.
having me. I
And
appreciate
it
it.
was a pleasure chatting movies with
Of
you.
course, yeah.
And thank all of you out there for always tuning in and supporting your Wasteland Reviewer.